Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's TheSketchMonkey here. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you remember this car right here? It's what's called the boot, the clown shoe, the shoe, or even the bread van when it came out in 1998. And it is, of course, the BMW M Coupe, made from 98 to 2001, and no changes was made to the suspension going from the Z3, which is, of course, based on. However, the added roof made the car 2.7 times stiffer than the Roadster, which means the handling is absolutely nuts, specifically if you put the E46 M3 engine in the car, which they did in 2001, which is completely insane, the power that you have there. So what we're gonna do in this video is I'm gonna take the M2 and I want to recreate this car because it's such a legendary car. It's one of these cars that the designers and engineers kind of made out of pure passion after hours. They wanted to take a Z3 Roadster, turn it in and put a roof on it, and turn it into a track fun car. You can see, just look at the shoulder line here. It's such a weird looking rear end, and that's why I love it, and that's probably why it's called the shoe and the clown boot or whatever, because you have this shoulder line that goes right here, normal Z3 all the way up to this point right here, almost like the line takes off up in this way, and it doesn't really connect back to the rear end like we normally see on normal cars like this. And this is one of these design features that made the Z3 Coupe special, even though it's not just the M Coupe, but all Z3 Coupes obviously looked like this in this part right here. And looking at it from a rear view right here, you can see that it's so weird. You don't really know if it's if you just look at this view right here, you can basically put this rear end on an SUV, a wagon, or a hatchback. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make sense to put it on a small BMW Roadster, which they did, but that's also one of these things that makes this car unique. As you know, the values of these cars today just continue to rise, especially if you find one with low mileage in great condition. They probably would sell for $70,000-$80,000 or something like that right now. It's the same thing with the E46 M3 and the E39 M5, for example. Recently, a E39 M5 sold for $120,000. So the values of this generation, early 2000 BMW performance cars, is definitely on the rise. So that's why I want to bring this M Coupe back, because it's such a special car. Just like for example, the Jaguar XJ220 was also one of these projects where the engineers and designers made it out of pure passion for cars. They made it after hours. They just took some old Rover rear lights and just slammed it onto a car that goes 220 miles per hour, and they called it a XJ220, and boom, you have a legend there as well. So this car, growing up, it was one of my favorite cars of all time, just because it's so special. I don't know if I would be a happy dog being trapped in the back of this car, especially if you go around corners and on the track. With this handling and all this power and rear wheel drive, it's gonna be a lot of motion in the back of this car. But at least I would be happy just like this owner right here. So let's have a look at the BMW M2 here, and this is the latest 2020 CS, and I love the way the M2 looks because it reminds me of the BMW M Coupe, one of the best M cars ever made, and it also has the same exact proportions as this. It's just a fun track car with a really short wheelbase, which makes it go around corners like crazy, especially if you have 400 horsepower in the car like you do with the M2 here. So of course, it's not really a lot to talk about here what I want to do with it. I want to add something similar to the Z3 M Coupe, like we have something like this, but make this not, it's not supposed to be a wagon. I just want to make it weird looking. That's the point. More like a hatch, I guess. Just add a section on the rear end to make it look like it could be a successor to the M Coupe. With that said, let's just jump into Photoshop and continue here in Photoshop, and let's create this M2 wagon hatch shooting brake or whatever you want to call it, and let's see how this is going to turn out. I feel something has been lost when I look at the most modern car designs today. I think designers are not having as much fun today designing cars as they did in the early 2000s when, for example, the M Coupe came out. Engineers, however, they're having a blast right now because all they need to do, if they create an entire model range, It's like the designers are very involved when it's a new generation of, let's take BMW here for example. Let's say BMW comes out with a 5 Series, a brand new 5 Series. Designers are having so much fun coming up with this new design language, and they get to work their creative side and put out some ideas. And then when you have the 5 Series done, the engineers, they have to come up with a lot of new stuff because it's a brand new generation. And then we have the 5 Series, it's complete. We have the new generation of the 5 Series. So now we need to create a 3 Series. What do we need to do? As designers, we don't really do a lot. If you look at the cars today and the different ranges, they're pretty much the exact same styling all over again. But the engineers, all they need to do, because they're very happy, so all they need to do is just shrink down some of the parts, maybe use some existing parts from the 5 Series to create the 3 Series, and boom, you have a smaller car. The styling and the passion from the designers are just not there. It was there in the first generation, the 5 Series, then you create the 3 Series, engineers shrink everything down, and boom, you have a 3 Series. And what about creating a 7 Series? It's going to be the exact same process there. You just resize the 5 Series, the tooling and all of that, keep basically the same tooling, and boom, you have yourself a larger 5 Series and call it a 7 Series. So that's what I think has been lost lately, especially for designers. But I really hope it's going to change with the electrical platform, and that the designers get more freedom and more creativity to just let loose and create fun projects like this. I hope it's going to be a similar trend like we had in the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s with these projects just based on pure passion from designers and engineers when they built cars like the M Coupe, like the Jaguar XJ220 on their spare times after hours. So if, for example, if you have an electric platform, I hope the companies would allow the designers and engineers to have some creative freedom and do some special models that they want to do specifically. Although I think it's a very hard thing to do. It's a lot harder to do today because of how the market is set up today, what the market looks like. Because today, if you create a new car, it's like you need to have a target audience before you even start considering creating a model. And that's why we see a Mustang SUV, for example, because people are buying SUVs. So they just added a nameplate that people recognize as sporty and just slap it on an SUV and call it a Mustang, and it's a done deal. But I hope companies give engineers and designers more freedom in the future, and don't be so afraid to lose money initially, because as I said, these cars are collectibles and they are very important for the brand. Specifically, if you look back at them 20 years later, how important the M3 E46 or the E39 M5, for example, how important they were for BMW here in this case. Even though they might not have made a ton of money for the company in the beginning, but what they did is they created fans of the brand. And I think we need more cars today that create fans of the brands and not just consumers of a specific brand. And that was basically the idea of this redesign here, to create something more fun. It's not the most practical car. It's a two-door wagon. It's a two-door hatch or shooting brake, whatever you want to call it. But it's a car that people hopefully would remember if it came out in production. Same thing with the GT350. As I said, I would buy the wagon version that I did, or the shooting brake version that I redesigned a week or so ago. I would buy that instead of the regular Mustang Coupe GT350. Same thing here with the M2. I would buy this wagon version of the M2 instead of the just regular sedan or coupe version, because it's just more unique, and I'm a fan of wagons. Just give me a minute. This, to me, looks absolutely nuts. I love the way this turned out. It does have still some of the weirdness of the M Coupe, because we still have the wing here, the spoiler that I could have chosen to delete like I did on the Mustang, but I wanted to add some weirdness to this design, and I think just adding a spoiler, like double spoiler here, just is one of these things that would make this car memorable and recognizable instantly for what it is. I'm actually not sure if a 2 Series hatch exists. I know it doesn't exist here in the States, but now that I think about it, I didn't do the research and look up if a 2 Series hatch actually exists in Europe, because I'm not 100% sure about the market over there. But anyway, if it does, I don't know if it looks like this or not, but this anyway is my design of what the M2 hatch wagon shooting brake could look like, and I absolutely love this design. This is one of these cars that if BMW made it, same with the GT350, I would choose this design over the regular sedan, just because it's more special and it's cool. It's just a cooler looking car, and also it's more practical. You have a lot more space in the rear to put your stuff in back here. So it's not really a lot to talk about this design. It's a simple change, very quick redesign today, but I just love this result. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. If you want to pick up one of these sketch hats, you can do so down below in my shop. Go check it out if you're interested in that. Thanks again for watching. I'm the TheSketchMonkey. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.